Welcome everybody. So this is kind of an impromptu throw up. You guys all know me. I'm Tessa here in Indiana. And I have been promising to do more Fast2Fab for a really long time. And a lot of you asked me about it. And I'm like, it's just so hard. The to-do list is ever changing. But when I saw the promo pop up for the sale on the pages, I was like, we got to do something ASAP. And so I looked at the forecast. Like I said, I was outside all day in the yard yesterday. And today was going to rain. It's like, okay, Sunday afternoon, we can do this. And this is kind of how my life is. Like, if you're okay with 2 days notice, I can do more. If you want me to schedule out weeks in advance, it's like, that's where I have issues, right? Because like, I don't know what's going on. The twins are with their dad this weekend. And for example, Campbell got asked to play today. She's in 8th grade. She got asked to play with seniors in a soccer tournament, which is a big deal, right? So I like, when I have the kids, I can't commit either because I don't know, I might be driving the soccer. But we're going to take advantage of this rainy, wet weather here in the promo that launched. They're already on sale right now. The Fast2Fab pages and albums are on sale right now. You can get free stickers if you order this weekend. If you order tomorrow afternoon Central with the promo, there's the Ladybug and the Leaf promos. If you spend $135, if you spend $270, you can get both. I'm going to give you more than 270 reasons why you can spend that tomorrow. I know we all have budgets. But if Fast2Fab is in your future, it is a little bit of investment to get all you want for the album before they sell out. And you might want to hoard some pages, as I do, as we talk about why I choose pages and what I have. And so if your budget allows it tomorrow, I would suggest stocking up on pages you might want. 20% off and the promo. It is a sign, seal, deliver sale. I felt anxiety when I saw the promo pop up because like, oh my gosh, do I have all the pages I want? Because now everyone's going to be buying them and they might sell out. And usually you have a little bit of lead time when these collections will go. So let's talk about Fast2Fab. And I will say I could talk all day about this. I'm going to try to condense it down a little bit to the basics so you can decide if you want to try a project and what pages you might want to buy because we're on that promo sellout timeline. I haven't even watched yet the video they put out in the advisor preview. I know they talked about their Fast2Fab vision going forward. They're going to keep the kind of the 4 main categories available: the baby, wedding, travel, which the travel they're considering, which one did they consider travel? Tropic time and I'm blank, the school. And then they will have a seasonal set. And those seasonal sets, I think, are going to be a little less specific than what they have put out so far. What I don't know, and if you have done this, you might know more than me if you watch the video, if they will continue to put as many sets out or if we're going to be limited to kind of these 8-ish per year. That I don't know. I assume they'll probably still have a Christmas one. That wasn't even mentioned. So what is Fast2Fab? Fast2Fab pages are pre-designed pages. We're going to flip down to my table. Hopefully it doesn't look too dark. Some of the what I'm going to show you has page protectors on there, so I didn't want to get too much light because I didn't want to get too much glare going on, but I can turn on more light if needed. So Fast2Fab pages are pre-designed pages. This is a staycation. If in the last couple of years, a few years ago, they took the matte sections off the pages, so now when they make them, there's no places for photos per se. They're just giving you a base pack. What do we use Fast2Fab pages for? I won't lie, I still don't use them for my family chronological album. I am about this close to actually trying to do Fast2Fab for my family book, I think for last year, because I'm just so far behind. And with the stage of life I'm in right now, I pretty much take photos outside on my walks or with sports and the kids. And so I think with kind of my chronological type pictures, I can use those. So Fast2Fab, like I said, it's usually a color scheme. They will have some sort of element of design, and they are a great base way to start albums. If you're new to Fast2Fab, my #1 tip is to choose a project. I would not start, if you have a project that is like a beginning to an end, I would start with that. I wouldn't necessarily start with a family book unless you really like, when I talk to you about it, that really like, checks the boxes for you, then go for it. I think there are very common, I look through some of you when you put the answers in the registration, very similar holdouts for why should I use a Fast2Fab? How do you mix the pages? What do you do the page doesn't work. So we're going to talk about a few of the albums I've done, why I choose what I choose, and then where we want to go from there with what pages we have available. So this is Staycation. I actually haven't used Staycation yet. It's in my stock because it is a wonderful basic power palette. Like I wish that we had more collection based around with Staycation. They gave us one paper pack, one embellishment pack, but this would be a very easy pack to use for a family album or an event. It has this color palette in it. And so as you pay attention to the stickers and papers that you have, there's actually a lot you could pull into this set. And most of the design is nothing you would need to cover up, right? There's no icicles, there's no snowflakes, there's not a lot of specificness to so the staycation is definitely a nice general, and I know Megan has used it for her vacation. I have started with, so I do a lot of vacations, but first I'm going to show you, I have Emerson, who is a senior in college now. And when she was a freshman, I was a photographer taking all the pictures of her prom photos, homecoming photos, and I ended up with so many photos. So what I've done with these pages can be something very similar to a wedding, any kind of formal event, an event where you have a lot of photos. You're going to see like I said, I hoard my sets. I have old ones. This is a really old set from Ani and Zoe. It's been in my hoard, but once I saw the photos from this event with their dresses, I knew that it would work. And this is back in the days where if you find some of the older sets, they did have spots for photos, and people get pretty hung up on that. Like the photos don't work. You don't have to use them for photos. It's basically just becomes a piece of paper on the page that you can adapt. So a lot of people liked removing the mats. I actually missed them a little bit because it added an element of design to the page that I could adapt for using. So this book is not completely done. I started, but the nice thing, I just started doing this a few months ago. I need to do the finishing touches. Is it coordinated with I Am Grateful? So the secret box stuff that came out, I realized that the color palette was very similar. So as you look through the pages online, you want to pay attention to the color palette. Don't get stuck up on the theme, and don't get hung up on one pattern in that you might not like, because we'll talk about how you can cover up something in there if you like most of it and you like most of the colors. When I do Fast2Fab albums, we won't get too much into technique today. That's a whole nother series we'll have to get into. As when I make my first pass through the book, which you're going to see in here, I really is focused on putting the photos on the page. So when I use Fast2Fab, I'm not starting with an idea sheet. I'm not starting with a power hour idea. I'm starting with the page and my pictures, and what can I do to get the pictures on the page first, and then I start decorating around them. Like I said, this one came with the mats. I had a little bit too much yellow. I added in. Yes, I always have the paper pack. So even if I'm working on Fast2Fab, I always grab the paper pack. Sometimes too, because sometimes there's a print in there that you want to pull in or something like that. So this striped paper came out of the paper pack. It wasn't part of the pages, and you'll see that I've incorporated that throughout. Peekaboo pockets, like as many packs of pages as you order, I use probably 5 packs of peekaboos per album, it feels like, because I just take so many photos trying to fit them in there. So don't forget to order those as part of your promo if you're getting into them, because I would just add peekaboos to get more photos on the page. As you can see, these are pretty simple. This set had a little bit more design to the pages, but I haven't really even added all the decoration yet. I just do what I can as I make my first pass. You might recognize this frame from the I Am Grateful set. I might add in a mat. So this is a mat I added in, but most of this is just printed on the page. As you can see, that it's not missing much, right? I still need obviously do the finishing touches on this. But don't get too caught up on the design if you're starting with Fast2Fab. Your pictures really will tell the story. And I don't think when you go back to it, you're like, oh, I should have used more punches, or I should have used more borders. I do run out of peekaboos sometimes, like on this one, so I don't have them quite all the way down. And, I added in a little bit of print there. I added in the print here. This page was pretty bland. So I added in the double mat. You can always cut your photos down a little bit more to add in some of the paper and the prints if you want to add to your design. So if you're doing a wedding, Devotion is the set we have right now. I have Devotion and Stash for, I think it's our senior homecoming photos I haven't done yet. Maybe this is homecoming, maybe it's prom, one of the sets. So formal events are really easy to do. I would grab devotion, grab any embellishments. The sets are usually neutral, so you can add in the colors that you want. This was one of my very first albums that I did with Fast2Fab. It was a trip to Utah. Some of it's not Fast2Fab, but do you guys recognize, some of you have been around a while, these pages? I see some of this. It's Woodland Whimsy Boy. It was the boy page set we had a time for baby. And I was looking through that. It's like, you know what? Most of these are neutral colors and they would work fine for the outside. The baby sets are always on my list of sets to hoard. Right now we have Lullaby Lane. I grabbed Lullaby Lane. I think we're going to see a neutral one that looks like this too. This would work for probably almost any outdoors or just a generic family. So as we look at Lullaby Lane, like what do you even see on these pages that's baby related? Very little, right? It's mostly neutral, mostly browns, mostly blues. All the colors that we have in everyday life, right? Lullaby Lane, if you want to start doing vacations, or would be an excellent set to start with because it's completely neutral. You just add them. If you don't like the heart, just cover them up. That's really about the most specific thing in this set. I almost used this for one of my vacations. I'm going to show you one half of that. I ended up going with a different set, but the baby sets are usually pretty conducive to versatility. With this baby set, there was one print that I was like, you know what, that's not going to work for me. Thanks. Find underneath there. On my page. It was the print with the woodland animals, and that's what made the set kind of cutesy, right? And so a lot of people probably looked at that set and said, that's too cutesy, it's not going to work for me. And I looked at it, it's like, you know what? Okay, everywhere that I find that print, I'm just going to cover it up. And that's what I did. And it's a little bit too juvenile for my 17-year-old boy who was on the trip with me. And so if I came to a page that had that, I either covered up the whole sheet or part of the sheet. You can see the top of this page, it's neutral. So I could have kept this entire half of the page and just cut a piece of paper, fit the bottom part, and then you have your base set. I chose to just do a solid for that side. These pages did come with the mats. You can see there's very little I'm adding to the book. If you have vacations, if you travel outside, I only will use Fast2Fab now for my vacations. It cuts out so much work. It does cut out a little bit of the creativity, but I have plenty of books that I can work on and kind of satisfy that. An embellishment pack or two is really all that's needed. Ooh. So my books get so heavy. So this one is almost all the way done. Obviously, I haven't done the title page yet. Let's see, I need to go back to that. I have all the stuff for the title page up here. I always do the title page last. This is my 2020 trip to, we did Yellowstone, Jackson Hole. The spring collection, the spring sets are almost always versatile to vacations outdoorsy. Right now we have Painted Garden, so it is a little bit more specific than some of our past spring sets. But Spring Cottage, which was last year, Spring Medley the year before that, are wonderful sets. I've used all of them for vacation. So this one, is a spring set, but I just went through, and blue goes well with gray, right? And so when I go through to pull out some of our travel stuff and borders, they coordinate pretty well. So the spring set had the clouds on there. I just added in a little bit of airplane punch, an embellishment probably from Wanderlust or something. The old border from the travel done with one. You guys have that travel done with one in your stash? This is when you start going through your stash too. You're just looking for the color palette. What are the colors that will go with your album? Because they will work in very well with Fast2Fab pages. So this whole first of this book is Spring Medley pages. It was that blue base. And the blue always pops outdoor photos very well. Do a lot of you guys do vacation albums? I think it's pretty common to scrapbook. If I were you, I would convert. Fast2Fab will be the only way I do vacations now. And like I said, I always use so many peekaboos because I have such a hard time cutting down my photos, but I cannot afford to do multiple books for vacation. I will do two. Some of these trips we're doing are like 10 to 12 days. That's a lot to fit in one book, right? So usually we'll do two books for the longer trip. But that's what I tell myself, like, okay, I have two books, I have to fit. It doesn't matter how many photos I've taken, I have to fit. I either have to pare them down, or I have to do peekaboos, or I have to cut them down. Have you guys probably saw some of my posts when I went to Megan's in February and I took all those photos and I hadn't, how many did I say I printed? I don't know, thousands of them, right? And I had to do all the work of cutting them down, but I'm not doing more than two books for that vacation. They have to fit. And when you go back through, you know, you're trying to tell the story, but you don't want too many photos or you kind of lose the effect of some of your photos. So on this page, you know, with all the peekaboos, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 peekaboos on this one page. You know, I'm spending the money on the peekaboos, which I think are 60 cents each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 360, but I'm only using 2 pages still, right? Instead of adding that many extra pages there. If you're like me and you add a lot of photos, there's not a lot of page left to design when you're done, right? Once you get all of your photos down there. And so when I start with a Fast2Fab page, my first step is the photo layout. And then I figure out how much space do I even have to put anything else on the pages. If you pay attention as you flip through, you're not going to see a lot of punched borders. I don't end up with a lot of room. When I do these books, I like to use our pre-cut borders. If you look through, borders are like, if pages are number 1, peekaboo's number 2, the pre-cut borders are probably number 3 on my list for hoarding because so many of our sets go together very well. Right now we have Welcome Home, we have Our Moments, we have Family Memories, the fall ones. Some of the more recent ones would be like Homestead. Art Nouveau had embellishments, but not borders. So this is just one of the borders. So all of the borders want to get mixed together when I'm working on my books. And so I'm just looking for the borders to find a color that works. As much as I store my collections together, the borders I end up all dumping together and just pulling them all out as I go through my projects. You can add in the 6x12 peekaboo pockets if you need to add a little bit story maybe to one layout. Especially on this trip, like this was one hike, right? You know, depending if I have my whole extended family, which we did, you know, maybe I need 2 layouts, but I don't want to have layout upon layout of the same hike. We go on so many hikes, you're going to get lost in it, right? You're tired of that hike by the time you get to layout number 3. I'm just trying to tell the story of that one moment. This one, let's see. Yeah, we rode the boat. So this was the hike. And so, yeah, there really was one layout. The only reason why I had to have really all this is the story of me and Campbell getting lost in the hike. I like lost my family right away. They all turned to go look at the waterfall. Campbell and I went straight. We kept hiking. There's only one trail. Like, surely we'll catch up to them. I could never find them. And then I didn't have any cell service. We just kept going because I had no idea how we possibly could have lost them. And they ended up being behind us the whole time. Here, you know, so this is the Fast2Fab. So I did have a little bit of my punches, you know, I added the mountains and the clouds. This is the word bubble I cut down. So when I am going through choosing my pages and my collections, I will limit the amount of punches I'll pull into a book. And I'm usually like I go to Megan's retreat or something, I can't take all of my punches. And I try to choose a few to incorporate that I can use repeatedly throughout the book if I don't have a border to use. This page, this is all the page printing. The only thing added on here are a couple of the, I think these are stickers, and I journal directly on the page. No matting. The nice thing about Fast2Fab is if it does have a little bit of a dot or maybe a little bit of a neutral pattern, you can use those kind of as a matting effect. You know, use the lines, use the dots, and to line it up. If you notice on my photos, I cluster my photos. My photos are usually pretty tight, and they have a real thin spacing in between. It eliminates the need for a mat, which is I don't need the extra paper and I don't have to do the extra work. A lot of it will go directly on the page. On the flip side, you'll notice I mat a lot more sometimes in these books because I don't have to do the page. And so sometimes I can take the time to mat if I want to. Yeah, these are the pre-cut borders. Like I said, I get all the photos down. How much room do I have left? Not a lot of times. Spring Cottage was a great collection for this trip, ironically. So here we're transitioning now. We went from spring medley and now we're in natural disposition pages. Natural disposition was a very neutral set, but it incorporates, you can pull in the darker tones when you have really a basic neutral. So I think these came out of Art Nouveau and then Beneath the Pines embellishments. My embellishments really do stay with the collections, except when I start doing a project like this and they all get mixed up. And then I just kind of have to move that little baggie. I use the sticker baggies a lot, our 6x12 Ziplocs, and just keep them all in there and kind of move them project to project. So natural disposition, again, like I said, I always have the prints. Usually there's a print or two I'm pulling in throughout the book to do that. So we get through there, a little bit of spring medley came back in. So people say, do you mix up your pages? I really don't in a layout. I really just use a set and I truck on through. If I come to a set that really doesn't work, I'll cover it or maybe insert. But pretty much I keep going. But then if I'm going to transition back to a different set like I did here, I wanted to go back to spring medley because we were on the lake. I wanted the blue. I was coming off of natural disposition, which had no blue. And so on this page, the transition page, I covered it with paper. So if you keep doing that, you're always covering a lot, right? Because you're transitioning, you kind of lose the effect of the Fast2Fab. So I really don't intermingle them very much. I follow them. I don't know what word, sequential. I go sequentially in the book more than stacking them in there. And I find too, when you're doing books like this as a whole, I do them as power layout. It's kind of a different process, which we'll get into. I feel less pressure to do a lot on the pages because you really are looking at the whole project as a whole. It's not a page by page pressure that I think we feel like sometimes when we're doing layouts, that each page has to be this masterpiece. It does not. In Fast2Fab books, they just have to be part of the full story. And so if you have one that just has basically a punched a border, added a strip of paper, sticker, that was it, then I can move on. I'm not going to pretend like these are always fast pages because I still have to probably pare my photos down. Which ones am I going to use? I never crop before I do the page design because I might want to trim them all down the same size, right? Like if I'm going to use a size I don't want to pre-crop because I might need to leave one a little bit bigger than I maybe thought I would later. That was one thing, I'm old enough to, I'm a baby, I know, compared to a lot of you. But I started scrapbooking back in 2001. We cropped before you did your page, which I would never do now. It just would be so, the sizing would be off. Okay, so then here we get into a birthday. Oh no, the baby shower was first. So here we're having a baby shower. It's on the family vacation. How do I incorporate that theme into the book? Well, it works out so that maybe the printed page for spring medley didn't work, but some of the papers worked. And so I just kind of went in there and cherry picked out the gingham. So I covered these completely. I was still able to use the collection and customize it a little bit more for the event. And then here we are transitioning again to Spring Cottage. So Spring Cottage was a set that I followed this with. I kind of loses the blue, but I still have a lot of blue in my photos, right? So the Spring Cottage had a little bit more of a, I don't want to say fancier, I had a little bit more design to the pages. But at this point in the trip, I transitioned it because we were doing, this was when we went to Yellowstone to do horseback riding, kind of more out in the trees, a little bit of pond kayaking. I'm pulling in those prints. So here I'm using a completely different set than I was at the beginning of the book, but it's flowed, right? Because I'm just sequentially using the pages that work for that section of the trip. This is actually Beneath the Pines, a little bit in there. Okay, then we get to layout. Okay, here we're doing s'mores, and it's, I want to use my s'more paper, right? We buy these things, we hoard them for a reason, the paper and stickers. I just added in. So this base was the page itself. I just had to cut out the strips of the star paper, stickers, A lot of, like I said, a lot of the Fast2Fab pages have a neutral on there that you can use as still part of your page, and then just bring in a little bit of the specific collection that you want to incorporate into it. But again, I have a lot of photos on here, right? And there's not a lot. That's the bad thing, is sometimes you do the book, I'm like, wait a minute, I wanted to use more of this, than you actually end up having. And then to finish out this book, it was Emerson's birthday. So how am I going to incorporate the birthday into it with Spring Cottage? So you guys remember Happy Birthday? It was so like, it wasn't actually very popular, but it had that pink in there. And I realized how well the pink went with the neutral tones that I was already working with. And so I just went in and picked out, you know, the lightest pattern that would fit with the neutral. I kept the neutral base, added in some of the specific stuff out of Happy Birthday, and it went out well. So here's like the morning of her birthday, but the afternoon of her birthday, we're doing outdoor stuff, right? We're still on vacation. I'm still using my Spring Cottage pages. This is kind of the base that I was just using on the birthday one. All these peekaboo pockets, right? Because goodness knows I have a problem taking photos. The brochure pockets, you notice this. So this is just a 4x6 peekaboo put on backwards. I use these all the time for the maps, the brochures. Now I can't really, I can either put this on the page protector, I can pull it out, or if you don't think you'll really ever pull it out, you can put this on the page under the page protector and then just reach under if you don't want to grab it. So we have this day, Spring Cottage, but then we're back to her birthday, right? The end of the day. But I just incorporate a little bit of the happy birthday stuff with the natural stuff, and it worked out pretty well, I thought. So that was that Fast2Fab book. At the end, a lot of type of memorabilia. I still have a lot of 8.5 by 11 pages. Sometimes I'll use those just to use them up for the top loading sleeves. I don't know how much of the Fast2Fab paper we'll see. I love the Fast2Fab packs. I hope we get more of those, but I don't know for sure that we will. I'll mention a couple of these real briefly. We talked about wedding and formal events. This is a book I did of my siblings' weddings. They're not all Fast2Fab, but I love this book because I gave them each 9 pages. Now, my youngest sister isn't married yet, so my book isn't full because she'll get 9 pages when she does. So this was my first brother. It was not Fast2Fab. I used black pages. I used the black and white palette. You remember the old power palettes were kind of Fast2Fab-ish, as far as some of the designs I did. And then I got to my sister's wedding, and this is the graduate Fast2Fab pages. So as soon as I saw the graduate, I loved them. It's just a neutral. I had the foiling to it. And so I love the way her pictures popped out against it. And then if you look through, I'd say, what collections do I have that have those neutrals, is the Divine Power Palette. And we have Devotion now. I've had some things since I've done these pages. This is a graduation set. I don't remember if the pages or just a paper pack had the graduation hats on some of them. I just skipped them. I just used everything else in it. So don't let one print hold you back from using a specific set. Honestly, I mean, look how simple the pages are. But I love these. These are like my favorite books to do. It's just the simplicity of beautiful photos. A little bit of design really comes in with how you put the photos on there. I know you can't do it justice really on the camera, especially with page protectors. So here's the end of her wedding and the beginning of my brother's. Again, this was a Fast2Fab set. This was Ani and Zoe. So when CM came back, I went back through all the Ani and Zoe sets because there's some good ones in there. The problem was there wasn't any paper packs per se. Some of them came out with paper later, but they had the slide-in mat. And so for my brother's wedding, I only had the slide-in mats, and I had to just go pull out some green paper from my stash to do his. But because the purple was his color, it coordinated really well with the green. I just picked out a couple punches. This set did have the photo boxes on there, but like I said, it actually provided a little bit of texture and design to the page without me having to do it. And with no paper pack, I just used it to my advantage, offsetting it with the real green. And then the next one was not Fast2Fab. I wanted to use Fast2Fab, but I had the paper already, and I was like, I'll just use what I have. And then before I get into the album I'm working on right now, this is a book I did for my grandma. So if you have heritage photos, You have older photos, maybe. Our heritage sets a lot of times are just kind of neutral palettes that work well. And this one was, I think, Countryside Comfort. I need to do the title page. I did a book for her, and then I went back and did my book, and I haven't done my title page yet. These pages so are like our moments, which you'll see I actually used for my vacation. They work out really well. What was the other one? Daily Docket I've used. Oh, I'm blanking, guys. Countryside Comfort, and then what was the other one? Genuine had kind of those neutral tones that work well for older photos. I feel like there was another one in there. So if you have like your grandma's giving you stacks or fine family photos, don't worry about, just choose a color palette that goes well enough for it, and then just use the paper and collection to do it. So if I had the farm set back then, I could have incorporated a little bit, but this is really just using what they had, very little additions to it, just a little bit of the matte embellishments, because the focus really was just making sure I had the photos from her house and the journaling done. These are photos taken before she moved out, when she moved in with my parents. So that's why it's just a lot of like the windows, the chalkboard, her furniture, because it all got taken apart, right? Oh yeah, here they are. So it was the daily doc. I think they're called Our Memories. The Fast2Fab pages were called something different, and you actually don't come across them very well. But you know, even story time, not so. Staycation pages would have worked well for this if I wanted a little bit brighter palette, right? And then I'm going to show you what I'm working on right now. You won't get to see the first book. So the vacation I took last year, we went to Bear Lake, Utah. So the first half of the trip was a family vacation, family reunion at Bear Lake. The second half of the trip was we went down to Moab, Arches, Canyonland. So the first book I have not started yet, but I wanted to pull in the blues, and I thought I was going to use Seaside. I don't love the icons on Seaside. I don't love some of the prints on the Seaside pages. But if you look at everything else on there, it's a blue and natural neutral palette, which would work well for a lot of lake, ocean, water type sets, because you can cover up the embellishments if you don't like it. But then they came out with Q the Blue, like literally the week before I was going to Megan's, like, oh, Q the Blue will work perfectly. And these Bluehoo pages that came, I think they were December deals, they clearanced them out. They're not available right now. I know I still have them on stock, and I'm sure some of the ISO sites have them, but they were just really plain blue. I don't know if we'll see any other sets like this. And so I did intermix these, because they were, ones were just stripes. These were just the blue kind of crosshatch, had the darker blue, and the kind of ombre blue. And so that book I have power laid out. I used ages. When I get through with that, I'll show you. I didn't pull that out now because I have literally not touched it since I power laid it out, and it will be a mess if I try to pull it out. These before I get that out. So I mentioned spring, the fall sets. So this is fall, y'all. It has a kind of a plaid base to it. Golden Harvest is also currently available. Golden Harvest is for sure on my hoard list. Any fall set will work beautifully with outdoor vacations, because it covers the whole color palette of nature, right? I think this is the prettiest set that we have right now, Golden Harvest. And this is why this year, when I go to work on last year's photos, I know I did a lot of hiking in the fall. I took a lot of fall photos. And so I think I might just do sequential Fast2Fab sets and see how much I can get through the book, and just put all of my fall photos on these pages. And then when I need to work in maybe soccer layouts, I can do what I'll show you and what I did now in a book, where I just fit in a white page, cover it front to back, so I don't lose a Fast2Fab page in the transition. Definitely look at the fall sets, spring sets, fall sets, baby sets, always on my go-to for looking to hoard. But then we have ones like Sparks of Magic. I don't think these are as versatile, because you're given a very specific bright color palette. I do have these for the trip we took to Universal. I'm a little bit torn because when I go to Harry Potter World is not Disney. And so I will either have to cover up or work in because I'll probably use some of that bedazzled that we had, the geometrics and all that. But I might go ahead and just use these as a base. Disney stuff is done. Here's a devotion set. Like I said, it's pretty neutral. Do you guys all know when you go to the Creative Memory site, when you're on the shop page for each set, you can click on the issue link and flip through the set page by page. You can see exactly what each page looks at. I do that for every set that launches, so I can really look to see what is on there that maybe I wouldn't want to use, and is it too much or can I cover it up? And the other set right now that's on my Welcome Home. This is for sure on my hoard list. I thought I was going to use it on the album I'm about to show you, but then I ended up using Wanderlust in Our Moment. And so Welcome Home is currently on my hoard list for my trip to Colorado this summer, pending we don't have anything better for me to use it. But like I said, Welcome Home, all this stuff will coordinate well with the embellishments that I've been using on these other vacations, right? It's a very neutral color palette. It's the blues, the greens. I think it's pretty versatile. The only other one I didn't pull out that I do want to mention before I forget is Christmas. So in my family books, the Christmas pages are the ones I've actually have used in my family books because I just, once December starts, everything goes on the Christmas pages. I usually have enough pictures in December to fill a pack of pages. And so I just use the Fast2Fab set that's available, and it saved me so much time just plopping those photos down there with the current stuff. Serene Waters is currently available too. I love it. I was so torn because I thought I wanted to use this for Bear Lake. I know some of it would work really well, but then Cuta Blue came out. So I'm going to keep this in hoard, but Serene Waters is a very lovely set that I'm sure would work well if you take beachy vacations or whatever. I would hoard that one. Okay, I think we're down now to what I'll finish up on. Hopefully kind of just get your mind going. You can go back, think about the projects you have, look at the pages we currently have available, and then what do you buy? I buy 3 of every set. I know that, well, except for like the ones I did for like Emerson's, right? I know I only need 1 set for that. If I'm going to do vacation. Now, will I always use 3 full sets? Probably not. I'm probably going to do a sequential thing, but I can always cover them up, right? For $3 more than regular pages, it's worth having the set sitting there in case I need it. And if you can either cover them or sell it later, someone probably wants them. So this is the second half of the book. So when I went to Megan's, I power laid out this whole vacation. It was like 2,000 photos. I had to fit it in one book. This is the second half of the trip. That was my mood at the time. I decided to use Wanderlust in Our Moment. So this is the first page of it. This is printed on here. The only thing I added was the borders here. So this is printed, this zigzag borders printed, and the blue is printed. The rest of it came out of the Wanderlust collection. Wanderlust is a wonderful set. I don't think it's on sale, but it's definitely very versatile. You guys did Winter Frolic, we broke this down a little bit. And that's the nice thing about some of the Fast2Fab pages is you can turn them into sketches for different pages, right? This set just had this brown border down the middle, right? This side actually had the white big frame, which I love it when they give me the kind of that big space because it's kind of this challenge to like fit my photos in the space. And so I was able to, sometimes I do maybe a double matte if I do want to bring in the color, make one big matte, put the photos side by side. I did punch with infinity chain, but this is I think homestead border, maybe a lot of pre-done stuff. So now you're going to see the Wanderlust pages. That's what I worked on here. My photos are directly on the page, no matting. I punched a border, added the mat, and a couple of stickers. That's it. Over here, I punched the border. I cut the circle embellishment and I added the mat. That's it. So here's one of those ones, like I just said, right? It's like that has the space down the middle. On these pages, I've opted to leave it open. You're going to see as we go through the book, there's another page layout that I actually did more pictures than that. But I did take advantage of the design it gave me, and I'm just going to add in peekaboos to add in the extra photos instead of, I could have left out the peekaboos. I have plenty of space for the photos, right? But this is a way for me to take advantage of the Fast2Fab design, add a little bit of interest so it doesn't look like every other page. I think these actually are going over here. So I'm going to flap open my peekaboos. And this one I cut my photos down. So I cut down the 2 photos to fit on the 4x6 mat so I could fit an extra photo on that page and maintain that design. And I might still go back and add in some sort of other embellishment or title. I do have a few non-CM things. I have some of the national park kits. I think that's what this came out of, the Moab thing, and I'll put down there. As I work through the books, I go as like I said, my first step is to get all the photos down, and I will do as much design as inspiration allows me. If I have an idea, I'm going to run with it. When I get to the point where I'm stuck, I'm going to move on and keep going through the book. It's all about taking advantage of kind of that mental space for me. So I will go to this book in layers, kind of working its way through completion. And that helps me kind of stay on task sometimes instead of getting caught up and all the way down to finish. I don't do a lot of journaling. I'm usually with people. I have to do that at home. I don't usually do my titling right away because I don't carry my ABCs with me. And if I'm with Megan, I can still die cuts. But again, I kind of leave that to the end because then I can be a little bit more efficient in cutting those. So on this page, it's just the border. That's the only thing I added. Page was all printed except for that. Same for this side. I cut one of the borders in half, added the border there. But I'm cutting down my photos to fit. I'm kind of like taking the challenge of making them fit on the design that they gave me. A little bit of border in there. Like, again, here's the peekaboos. That will pop open. It's hard to cut down your photos, especially you guys take a lot of scenery photos. You're like, but they're all so pretty. And so I will print them all and I will go through them. When I actually see them on the page here, I realize sometimes the duplicity in them. Like I don't really need both of these. If I have both of these, I'm losing some of the accent of just having the one, just having a couple to tell the story. This page so far, I've added the strip of paper right here. Added in the print. That's it. But like it has this dot, right? It has the dot design on the page, so I can use that to kind of line up my photos, cut them down, have a little bit of a series of 3. They're all clustered together. I don't have a lot of space left to come through. On this page, it's just printed down the side. So again, I took the challenge of fitting my photos inside of that. Add a peekaboo for a couple I just couldn't get rid of. In here, peekaboos. I added, looks like I punched a zigzag. So before I went out to Megan's retreat, I went through my punches, excuse me, and I sent her a list of punches I wanted her to have available. The double rickrack, that's a must have. I feel like the rickrack's easy to add in a little bit of color on your pages. But a lot of basic design. This is just that basic pinwheel 4 square, right? But the Fast2Fab pages underneath it, a little bit of interest. I wanted to add in a border here, but then I had my, oh, this is going to be a 5x7. I need to reprint here. So this will be a whole 5x7 peekaboo with this photo matted. And I wanted to add in the border up here, but then I want to run the border over here, but I didn't want to cut down her photo anymore. So I'm just running the border over the picture. If you can see that. Here is a page. So, I wanted to do the sad thing. We were down here in the desert and it's a dark sky, except it was a full moon, which was such a bummer that week. But there was this one night, there's enough cloud cover kind of covering up the moon enough that I could see a little bit more of the stars. So I pulled out this paper, which I think maybe even came from Out of This World. So I'm just going to cover this page for this layout. So it doesn't work. It didn't work on the Fast2Fab. I'm just covering it up. But on this side, I'm carrying on with my Fast2Fab. So far, I haven't done anything out of order. I know you guys can't really see the book, but have you seen any layouts that are like, oh, it doesn't really work with that page? They just seem to work once you just go in order. And if you don't like it, just cover it up and keep going. I love this page. I think I did this in one of the challenges too. So this is a revisit of that page we saw a little bit ago. It had the big frame. My photos fit a little bit different. So I overlapped here, but then I added in just a couple of chain borders, and that was it on the page. Like they've done the framing for me. They added in the 2 colors for me. I feel your pain. Someone's mentioned they had old albums. So some of these, I would love to use like the old Journey album with the natural pages, but then I just can't bring myself back to using plain pages. So they all have to be true size now. So here's the spot I talked about. Okay, what if I'm going to wallpaper both sides? I have a transition point. What do I do? This came out of one of the national park kits. It's a map of the park, and I really wanted to incorporate it into the book, but I didn't want to waste a Fast2Fab on it. And so I didn't take enough white pages with me to Megan. So the Fast2Fab pages are a white jeeping. And so if you're going to cover it up, you can fill in white pages if you have a transition point where you don't want to keep it on both sides. So I'll get a white page. This will go on one side. And so on the back side, I just found one of the tonal papers that would incorporate in well then to pick up the next Fast2Fab side. So it's just a white page will fit in there and flip it. At the end of this, I'm going to count how many peekaboos I use. We're getting to some fun peekaboo pages, so hold on. I'll show you some fun ones. 2 more peekaboo here. Again, this is another one. I think the backside of this is a map, so I'm just going to add in a white page. So I just used a base paper here. Oh, it's not a map, but it's a base paper. So here is a spot. The Fast2Fab didn't work. I wanted to go back to the star paper. So I covered up the top of the page. The bottom of the page was that blue cover. I was covering up the top, added in a little bit of a paper border strip to fit the theme and move on. This is that same page set. Remember, we've seen this once because I'm using 2 sets of Wanderlust in here. So now we're going to see some repeating design. This one I've added, a little bit above, but I kind of did the same thing. I just used the 2 photos on this side. I filled up the grid over here, but I cut some of these down, like I said, to fit. I'll take the challenge. How many photos can I cut down to fit and just give myself a little bit of a grid design in there? Oh, here's the other map one. Okay, this one's fun. So this is kind of funny. I was a little bit ambitious in some of my sorting. So I do originally power layout. Even if I have like 30 pictures, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do one layout. I'll stick them all on there. And then sometimes I get to the page, I'm like, okay, but I really want to use these. This one I did the waterfall. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a glare. How much I can get not glare. View. So I did a waterfall peekaboo. And do you guys keep some of the postcards? I always grab the postcards at the national parks. So I did this with my little waterfall to get the extra pictures in there, and ended with the postcard. So I don't usually put my page protectors on until I'm done, but if I have a lot of peekaboos like this, I'm like, I got to do it. I will forget. I'm going to forget what I was doing, forget the order. So I'll go ahead and make sure I have some to do it. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8 photos to waterfall across there. And then down here at the bottom, this one flaps open too. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 photos for this side of the layout. And then this one was fun too. So this is the other side, right? This will be a peekaboo. My page protector is not really on. So I had the page protector. I went ahead and took it off when I was done. So I wanted to get here. So I'm flipping up, flipping to the left, flipping to the right. So I have 3 peekaboos, but I'm just using the one spot. And I have a mat in there so I can journal. So 2, 4, 6, 7 photos right there. So it will make your photo a little fat, or your album a little fatter. So maybe a couple less pages, but I've easily saved pages worth, right, by using these peekaboos. So it's okay if some of my peekaboos add a little bit of width. So I really liked doing these two things. And I think the rest of this is just general, but I want to get to where you're seeing it's getting a little less done as I get through the book in some spots, but I want to get to where I transition to our moments. Oh yeah, the page protectors are easily strong enough. And once this book is put together, it won't feel as floppy as this is showing you. The only problem is they just get in the way as I'm continuing to flip, but I don't trust myself to remember where they're going to go, so I just deal with them as I work through the book. You know, I cut this one down. I cut down all these photos. I decided not to peekaboo and just cut them down to fit on that page. I like this one. So this is a 5x7 peekaboo. I don't use very many of those. I'm trying to remind myself, but I cut down the photos to fit on here. So having, this is Goblin Valley State Park. All the whole family was there, so all the kids were there. So I want to have all these other photos, but I don't really need to have a 4x6 of all of them, right? I don't need the background of everyone. So I just cut down the 4 photos to fit on a piece of 5x7. I cut down 4 to fit on top. So I got 8 photos on the front and back of that 5x7. And underneath I have 2 more. That was 10 photos in the 5x7 spot. I feel like because I don't have to think so much about actually doing the pages, that I get a little bit more creative in getting the photos to fit and the peekaboos. It kind of frees my mind a little bit. I'm not worried about following a layout. And this one, I just cut them thinner. I think they're still 6 inches tall. Cut them thinner to fit 4 across. Okay, so this is where we're transitioning to our moment. Our moments is the heritage set that we have right now. I think they put it on sale. I think it's a great one to get. I think it's very versatile to either vacations or heritage or even family if you have maybe older photos that are a little bit more vintage. So again, this left side, so remember we've seen this about 3 times now where it just had that brown strip across the way, and I said, well, I'll show you a page where I did put photos top and bottom. So I cut the photos down. These are still 6 inches wide, probably a little bit less than, so I had a little bit of spacing. I just cut them thinner so I could fit top and bottom, because I did want to maintain that design that the Fast2Fab page gave me. It gave me that nice border. It gave me that edge that I can't get any other way currently. I've suggested that to CEM. I really want them to make kind of an edge style cartridge, not like, we had the border cartridge, but something like that where it just fits in the edge punch. We can get some of these bigger, and Wanderlust, if you go through there, it has a lot of these nice big edge designs. I'm like, just look at Wanderlust. Whoever designed that already picked out all of them for you. So someday I'm hoping that they will come out with that. Well, I'll have to collect all the edging. Okay, so then we transitioned over to our moment. So we're transitioning to Capitol Reef area, which is a little bit above the desert. There's a little bit more foliage. It was gorgeous. One of my favorite areas. It's definitely well less known, but I thought the Our Moments pages would work out well. So this page is this dot design, and it has these floral sections, which I feel like sometimes when they print a lot on the page can be a little bit awkward to work around. You cover it, not cover it. If you don't cover all of it, you kind of end up with this awkward part of how to design it. And so I think sometimes the key is just overlapping it. I decided to cut down this box so I can still see the foliage around it. And it actually becomes kind of an embellishment, right? It looks like a layered effect behind my journaling box. And then I did use the stamping blade on here to mimic as close as possible that edge that was already on the map. The Our Moment set does have this berry color, but I really don't consider this, it is a pink, purple-ish, but it's so dark, I feel like it lends itself to even photos that maybe are a little bit more masculine with guys in them. I don't feel like it looks girly in it. So on this page, it has this kind of foliage edge. You can see peeking through a little bit more over here. And so sometimes, I am trying to say, I don't want to cover all of it. How do I maintain a little bit of what they did give me on the page? That tends to be my challenge, actually, a little bit more. So I'll do a little bit of spacing to let it peek through. Over here, I decided to do a peekaboo. I could have done photo, and really seen none of it. So I'll do that. I cut my large mat with the stamping blade here too, peekaboo on that. So I have maintain a little bit of what they gave me in that. It has some blue in it too. It kind of has that blue gray, so it's going to work in nicely with the welcome home stuff will coordinate well with it. And this is all printed, so I just added the photos here. I trimmed them down to fit within my space, kind of take the challenge of fitting what you have into the space they give you. And then this was, I bought this probably one of the gift shops. All you Cricut people, I am sure, can make this. I don't want to learn how to make that stuff. I just like to buy them. Like $4 sold, I'll buy it. And it was kind of that burnt cardstock that complemented the blue on there. And then I have my brochure. Like I said, I keep all the maps, and this will go on top of the page protector so I can pull it out if I want to. And on this side, I'm really challenging, how do I get as many photos as possible? It's hard on with my extended family because I have so many pictures, but I really don't want to extend the books. And so I'll usually cut them down and in the peekaboo. So this page, I think I pulled one. I can't remember if this was the same. It's probably is the same. They just look different on each side. It's not a mirror image. As you can see this lighter color coming through here. And then I cut this paper to add in. I needed to pull this color over, right? Because I did that and then added in the pre-cut border. Pre-cut border, National Park set, Wanderlust mat. I ended up, let's see, this one. I guess it is, that's just the page as it is. It's kind of that, whatever that pattern is. So I added in mats. I have more mats on this one. I'll have peekaboo for there. Peekaboo for here. I took this on spring break and I forgot to take more peekaboos with me. So this page, I offset them a little bit, but it's this printed. It's this kind of foliage print and then this border. So I was like, how can I design around it, maintain the design they gave me? I added in a border. I think this came out of the denim borders. You got this borders. That was another great set. About half of those work really well with most of these sets. Happy was one that was like, oh, I got a space where I can put it here. The embellishments and mats do have a family focus. So if you're doing anything with family, this is a good set also to work in. And like you can see, this is where I'm at kind of in the book. I don't have all the pictures down yet. So this is how it's looking as I get through my power layout. Probably what I was working on when I had to pack it back up. So I have started thinking about it. So as I work through this, these are the pictures I have to get on that page. And so I'll have to go through the mindset of, okay, am I going to peekaboo? These are very similar. I want to just keep one of them. I usually take pictures of the maps because I don't remember things, but then sometimes I want to go ahead and just keep the picture of it. I think I probably intended this to be peekaboo up here. Maybe I'll just keep one of those. And so when I do this page, I'm gonna center over here, maintain the border it gave me. I won't have a lot left to be able to add to the page, right? So that's what's in here. I know I have a few more pages that aren't even glued down yet that will go in this book. So yeah, so our moments, right? Who would have thought it would be, the perfect set to use for a national park. I do use the iris containers. The power layout boxes do fit the pages, the current one. I like the iris containers because the lid will flap all the way open and stay open. That's one of the bad things about the power layout box is that lid doesn't like to just stay open. I'm usually fighting with it. And so I will use the power layout box. Sometimes I'm just power layout, but once I actually start working on it, I usually transition to an iris case. And because there's also a little bit more give. And so when I pack this up, what goes on top of here now is my pile of paper and scraps I've been working with. I like to look through my scraps. Can I use anything for a border? Can I fit in little pieces? So it is a mess when I work on these books because I'm using very specific stuff, but I'm trying to work in the scraps as I go. Okay, that's a lot. Like I said, I can pull out so many books and talk through them. Hopefully you kind of got your mind going. And you can go to the website, look through my notes here. What else? Let me flip back up to my face. There I am. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'm going to look through my notes too and see kind of as a summary. I will do more classes in general. It's really hard to do Fast2Fab, like how do you design your page? Because like I said, I really am focused on getting the photos on the page, and that's going to be different for each of us. And so if you notice, there's not a lot of design per se, right, in my pages. At the beginning of the other book, the Q the Blue one, the very beginning of that is traveling, right? We had to travel to there. And so I actually pulled out, Meg and I did Wanderlust page makers, last year when the collection came out. I was like, oh, that would be perfect because I can just pull in white pages. I can use my pre-done page makers classes for the beginning travel photos. And then I'll just segue into those blue Fast2Fab pages when I actually get to the lake. And so I do that a lot. A lot of times at the beginning of these travel books, I'm using something else, having to segue into it. So yeah, I've kind of showed you both ways. So the vacations, obviously I'm getting a lot of photos on the page, but yet when I'm doing like Emerson's books, it's really a couple of photos per page, right? And so that's when you can let a little bit more of the page design work for you. I don't want to overwhelm you too much. I'm going to look through there, kind of see what you guys have said so far, what questions you have. Make your wish list for tomorrow. So when you're buying for the promo, if you think you're going to use Fast2Fab, go ahead and get them while they're on sale. I don't know how long I think everyone's going to make a big push now. I know I will just add them to the shelf. I know we all have to budget, so that's the bad thing about sometimes when some of these things pop up. Hopefully they bring us more papers. I don't know if that will happen or not. Yeah, lots of peekaboos. I so many. Don't forget the peekaboos because it just, I feel like if you take, one thing, you spread it over 6 layouts, you just kind of lose the effect of that event. I think it's better to keep as many photos as you can on one layout. I generally, obviously, I buy 3 sets. I can't usually fit 3 in a book, right? Because I'm doing so much with the peekaboos. And so I really probably am stopping at like probably 2.5 or so. But I will stretch it. I will put a few more depending on how I need to finish the trip. I will do what it takes to get in one book. I'm not doing a third. Definitely not. See what else did you guys ask? So mixing pages. So yeah, that's kind of my next challenge to myself. As you can see, I have a couple of projects not done. I need to get through these. And then I am going to print out my family pictures and see what it's like to do chronological. I probably will get one challenge I have are the summer sets. I don't think the summer sets tend to be as versatile, like Electric Summer, Citrus Summer. They're just so specific. I feel like kind of that bright school time summer, and that's not usually my summer. That's not indicative of my life per se. So I don't typically hoard those. So if I do this book, even like those staycation ones, I think are probably a little bit more amenable to kind of my life in the summer, maybe. So it's really looking at the color palette. So look at the pages, go to the issue online, flip through each page. If you have one print that you don't like, that's turning you off, like, okay, can I just cover that up? I have one of the sets I used for Emerson's pictures was Simply Sunshine. You guys remember Simply Sunshine? It was probably like 4 years ago now. And it had pink in it. And I just don't like pink. I really don't. And so it could have turned me off to the set, right? But I was looking at where the pink was. I was like, you know what? I can cover that up with pretty thin strips usually. And so I got one of the Rainbow Rush packs we had back then that kind of had that rainbows colors in it. I just cover that up on each page and I love them. I actually have that as a blog post. If you want to see some of those pages on my website, tessascrapbooks.com. Back when I thought I was going to do a blog before I started selling so much. Most of those blog posts are pretty old. But you can see the Simply Sunshine pages. on there. So look at the color palette. What can you cover up? And then look through, think through, flip through your collection. I do that at the start of every Fast2Fab. I store everything by collection, but a lot of the collections will work together. And I have like basically a large pod. So if you're just starting this now, I would get probably the display organizer, because it has a little bit more room in it. And so when I'm planning these projects, and especially when I'm going to travel with it, I put my power palettes of those collections that go with the pages, and it's basically one large pod. And so when I go to a retreat, that's the bulk of my project, is the iris container with my pages, power layout. And then I will grab the power palettes of the collections of the pages. So like Spring Cottage, Natural Disposition, whatever. And then because I've power laid out my photos as I go, I'm like, okay, oh wait, I need to bring in something for birthday, right? I have the birthday, I have the baby shower. So I will add those kits in. And then I go through my punches. I think the other key to not getting overwhelmed with some of these projects is limit your choices. Like, so many of our punches can go with so many things, right? We just got to choose a few. Now, if you think back to what I just showed you, I did not punch very much, right? There really was not a lot. There wasn't a lot of room. But of course, I always bring my jumbo jet for flying. Choose a couple punches for the leaf. And then those generic ones I think are really the most versatile: the double rickrack, a zigzag, circle chain, just those thin mirror triangles. The thin generic border ones are really easy to work into Fast2Fab, and they're great for the thin spaces of bringing in maybe a little bit of pattern or a little bit of color. But I will limit my choices, and I'll just make a list like these are the punches I'm going to use. Now, if I get to a page like, oh, I really want this, like when I was working on that book, I wanted moon and stars for the page. We had the full moon or whatever it was. And so I just made a note. Okay, so next time I need to just grab that cartridge and I'll go home and do it. So Simply Sunshine is the one that had a little bit of pink. You know, it's an old set, but it was just a little bit of pink in the flowery design I didn't like. And that's the bad thing about Lullaby Lane. It does not have a lot of pink in it, right? So if you are using that for baby, you will have to incorporate in your pinks and blues for that. My sister is using Fast2Fab. It was actually Story Time is the set when she had her baby. He's 18 months now. And she's done his whole first year just on those Fast2Fab pages. It's a beautiful book. I just gave her all the collection and she used it for all the events of his life. It's very cohesive. It works together very well. Someone's asking about pocket pages. I do not like pocket pages. I won't lie. They are flimsy to me. I don't like the way they flap. They don't stay flat. And I can create the same look on a page. So what is a pocket page? It's just those 5 pockets, right? And a little bit of thin. I can do that on a page and maintain the rigidity of my page. So I have one book I tried pocket pages on, I mix them in and I do not love it. And you can see through the clear. So I don't like that either. So that's probably my least favorite CM product are the multi-pocket pages, multi-pocket. Top loading sleeves, that's a different story. Now I could use top loading for those pages I said I had transition, but then I lose the jeeping. So I'm just going to use white pages for that. I use top loading sleeves for memorabilia, and I usually put those at the back. And so, you know, if I have, you know, if you're like me and you, at the end of it, you're like, have all the magazines, right? And you have the papers, you have to choose, okay, this is probably too heavy for the book. I don't really need this. Maybe you can just cut off the front page or something like that. And I put those in at the back of the book with memorabilia. And I will, like you saw the 8.5 by 11. And sometimes I use just the Fast2Fab page where any memorabilia I have left at the end of the trip that didn't have a place to work into the book, I will just put it in the back. I'll tape it down to a Fast2Fab page at the end, and maybe it's out of order per se, but I think it works well. It's still fun to find your receipts. How much did you spend on that meal or tickets? Or back in the day when we actually had paper ticket stubs for airplanes, I mean, you don't even know what's going to be a relic, right? By the time you maybe even finish the book, some of these things are gone. So that's a live. You know, I've talked for a little over an hour. It's a lot of information. Any other questions or insight, or what do you guys think you're going to order? You're going to try them. I know a lot of you are new. Some of you are just stalking this to think about. Maybe you want to think about Fast2Fab. Like I said, I think if you're just starting, I would choose a project with the beginning and the end. I would not start with just a family chronological book. I think it'll be overwhelming for you to have to then be choosing. I would choose a project that you really are just going to sit down at the pages and go in order and cover up what doesn't work. I think that's the easiest success, the easy win. And then once you kind of get converted to the concept, you won't go back. Like I said, I will not do a vacation book anymore. That's not Fast2Fab. So some of the books I have in queue, I got to finish that vacation. We went to Universal. I told you I have to do that one. I'm trying to remember which ones I just showed you. Those had to be, they were short dresses. That's prom. So the homecoming pictures must be the ones I'm going to use for devotion. No, it was it was junior year prom. They wore long dresses. That's what I'm using devotion for, because I went to see Megan, and that was right after COVID, and they weren't going to let the juniors go to prom. And then they invited them at the last minute when I was already planning my trip. I was like, oh my gosh, I missed prom. So someone else had to take the photos, and they're not as good, and I don't have as many, so I won't probably have a full pack. But so yeah, I have a whole shelf just full of pages because I don't know exactly what will work, and I want to have these available, and I don't trust CM to have what I want available in the moment I want it. So I am kind of a Fast2Fab page hoarder. I think that the gradients one is a little harder for me because I love the painted garden, but those pages are not as neutral, right? They're not as nature colored. It'll be harder to pull together my hoard of embellishments and what for that. I'm very curious to see what they do for the other gradients of the year. And vitamin C is still available. If you have not seen, I do have a vitamin C video on Megan and I's YouTube channel. It's just a tour of that book. So I didn't bring that album out today because you can go see the whole thing. Vitamin C pages are still available. They were great. I did a whole book for that. Yeah, I know CM's going to focus on Fast2Fab this year, so I'm curious to see how they do it. And I will probably be mad that I haven't done more of these classes yet, but okay. So what do you think would work for a class format? It's hard to really work on these together, I feel like, a little bit, because it's so customized to your page. I'm working on a handout that will kind of work through the process of power layout. I think you have to power layout if you're going to use them, because you have to know that you're going to fit. And I think that's probably the challenge, is like, okay, if you have this many photos and these are your pages, if you just start through the book, you're either going to, so that first trip I showed you, the one with Woodland Wednesday, that book ended up being 2 books because I stayed true a little bit to the photo mat. And so I was like 2 pictures a page. This is before Peekaboo Pockets. I was like, oh my gosh, I did that book, that trip, it was 5 days and I had 2 books, which was absurd, right? It should have been a one trip book, but yeah, I someone mentioned the farm for Fast2Fab. I think we could use kind of that palette, right? It's the palette, and then it would be pretty versatile to a lot of outdoorsy stuff. We haven't really had a Fast2Fab set that has kind of reds in it, kind of those farmy reds and greens, whatnot. Well, you'll have to let me know what you decide to get. You can load your cart now. Nothing new is launching tomorrow, so you can have it ready to go. I'm sure there'll be a short queue at least for tomorrow, but then you'll be just ready to check out. You know what you're going to get. I'm going to go through and make sure I have appropriate numbers of the ones I mentioned per se. I do not usually buy the cover with the pages, and that's because I don't know what I'm going to use it for. I do like some of the albums that come, but a lot of times I use the albums differently than I use the pages. If you know you want both, it is cheaper to buy it that way if you're going to split them up. But I don't buy the album unless I'm confident I'm going to use it. I'd rather get the cover set later. As long as I have the pages on the shelf. Albums are something I feel like are easier to find on the ISO sites. And so I've stopped hoarding as many of them because I'd rather pay $10 or $15 more in 2 years if I decide I want this book than store it for 2 years. All the ones I might want. It's kind of been hard for me, but they take up so much space. So I'm trying to give up space for that. So the sale tomorrow is if you spend $135, there's 2 free bundles to choose from. They both have a punch and they both have paper. One's a ladybug theme and the other one is a leaf theme. I think the leaf thing will be more popular because it does coordinate with the unbelievable template. Have any of you guys used that template? I haven't. It looked very daunting. Jean, I'm impressed that you used it because, but the punch will work for the template. So I think it's going to be pretty popular because the pieces will fit in. So if you spend $270, you get both sets. Oh yeah, thanks, Tam. So I did. I kicked out. Yeah, you can see it. I kicked out some of my stuff so you guys could see the carousel. So this is the Michael's cubes. So these are the 16 by 16 cubes. It was made to fit the Kallax, which are 13 by 13. You can see I have extra space above and below. That's not as, I don't know. Or maybe it's his final resting spot. Cooper wanted to load it for me, but you can't load it until you know it's going to sit somewhere because moving it around, all your punches will, unless you can carry it completely level, are going to fall out. So once I know where it's going to sit. I do have the punch one too. I didn't kick out any spot for that. Ideally, I really got these to sit on my desktop so that when I'm sitting here, I can spin it and have like, so if I choose punches for a set like this Fast2Fab, I would just pull out the ones I think I might want to use. The BMC holding 80 is a lot, right? I'll never use 80 punches in one book, but how many spaces does that large one hold? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times 8. So 72. So that holds more than the large BMC holder. I didn't realize that. Another question about kind of simple layouts. Yeah, it kind of goes back to the basics of like that Pinwheel Foursquare, right? It's like, what are the basic ways you can fit 4 to 5 photos on a page? Because you're just basically plopping them down unless you're going to stay within the borders that they gave you. And I think that's kind of where the Fast2Fab challenge is a little bit. It's like, okay, what of the design can I incorporate? Or what do I want to just cover up? All right, well, let me guys know what you end up getting. I want to see what you work on. Of course, you can put some ideas group as you go. I will share more of my project as I get through it. But you'll have your pages that you want available when you want them. Most of the pages are 20% off until they sell out, except for, I don't think Devotion is, I don't think Wanderlust is, kind of the main ones that they obviously are keeping around for a while. So if they're not on sale, and you have to prioritize, buy the ones that are on sale, because that's an indicator that they will let them go when they're gone. Sure. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Campbell has a basketball game this afternoon. I'll go meet her there and bring them home, but maybe I'll work on finishing up one of these projects, get it in the book. I can be done with it. I will post this publicly on my YouTube, share the link so everyone can watch it. But thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you soon. Bye.